Startup Cabin podcast is brought to you by Cedarwood. Cedarwood rents out senior CFOs to the tech industry from 1 to 5 days a week. For more, go to cedarwood.co. Welcome to the Startup Cabin podcast, where we share great strategies and insights from European startups and investors. Today we'll be hearing from Yael who co-founded the Israeli startup Stevie with her husband. Stevie is turning social web into beautiful TV. Turn your own personal feeds into a channel to see videos and updates from friends, or connect your company's social feeds for a branded channel without any extra work. Now, this was our first startup from the Israeli startup scene, and we're really excited to hear about their community. Today, Xue Mei and Yael will talk about finding the right advisors and investors, and what smart money is and why you should go after it. It's all here, so let's get into it, and I'll be back with you at the end of the interview with more.
Okay, cool. So, welcome to Startup Cabin podcast.
Thank you.
Can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and the company that you run?
So I'm Yael Givon. I'm 42 years old this year. And I've been in internet and startups for over 15 years, I guess. Started as director of marketing at ICQ, the instant messenger that came out of Israel, and worked at some international companies after that. I think it was sold to AOL, so I got to work at AOL as well. And in the last, I guess, 6 or 7 years, I've been doing my own things. I was a partner at Sense of Fashion, which was a secondhand and fashion marketplace mostly for young designers and some secondhand curators. And we founded Stevie at the end of 2011. Gil and myself. I met Gil at this internet camp, basically, of founders and entrepreneurs that happens here every year. And that's how we kind of got together, and it was just sort of a matter of time until we did something together. He's a TV screenplay writer and a programmer, so he has this kind of both worlds. And Stevie came about actually when we left Tel Aviv. We used to live in Tel Aviv for many years, and then we left to live out in the country. And we spend a lot of time in the car and listening to the radio, and we're sort of Facebook and Twitter junkies, and Instagram, and we kept saying, if we had news flashes, not about politics, but about what's happening in Facebook, that would be really cool. And we just laughed about it and played around with the idea. But then Arab Spring happened, and we found ourselves watching a lot of news channels on TV. And it was really weird because we'd sit in front of the TV, both of us with our phones, seeing, everything there, and that was going on in these places, and the video was from YouTube usually, and the tickers were from Twitter, and we're like, wait, we saw this stuff on our social media before it was on the news channel. Maybe there's really great TV hiding within our social media feeds. And that's how Stevie came about, basically. So what we do with Stevie is we take social media feeds and turn them into Leanback TV channels around any topic. It may be news or music or entertainment or hobbies or anything.
So basically, you can turn your friends' feeds or a theme you want to watch or a celebrity or whatever you're interested in at the moment and turn it into a TV channel that pulls everything from social media, right?
Yep, exactly.
Cool. So are you very alone with this kind of, do you have a lot of competition in this field? Because it feels very unique.
Thank you. It's, well, there are a lot of video curation startups and companies that, and some work more behind the scenes, and some have products for consumers like we do. Um, mostly, most of them deal with video and not sort of everything like photos and text and stuff that we deal with.
Mm.
There are some products for Chromecast and for connected TV that will show your tweets, for example, on a bigger screen, um, which is a different side of what we do. Um, and but creation of content for Leanback TV, actual channels, automatic channels out of that. YouTube does obviously playlists and they call them channels. So if you're on YouTube and you have a Chromecast or you have a connected TV, you can watch playlists, which are kind of like channels. But nobody does exactly what we do in terms of giving the whole sort of social picture around a topic or your own social feeds.
And I think it's also interesting that as you say, the lean back TV experience compared to what we usually use social media in very small tablet and smartphone formats. But um, as I've seen, it's really more of a TV experience, but you're not losing the social media kind of familiar feeling, which it feels like when I've watched other kind of solutions for different projects. It's just too much of an old-fashioned TV experience. So you're still sitting with your phone on the side, and that I thought it was really interesting. So
It's not,
yeah.
sorry, it's not like we want to replace your Facebook, your intimate Facebook and Twitter experience, and we don't show private messages or anything on the big screen, and we just think that some content justifies a bigger screen. And and turning these social feeds into sort of a communal experience of sitting in front of the TV, we found to be really interesting and worthwhile.
Mm. I'm thinking also about the use of finding kind of trending topics. If you have an office or a lounge area for your company, you can actually have like a mixed feed of either your company or something else as well. That part I think is very interesting. What's the kind of business model for Stevie?
So actually, we do have a few partners like advertising agencies that have just in their lobby, they have a big screen showing a Stevie that's mixed out of their customers, because they maintain their customers' Facebook pages and Twitter pages. And this way, they sort of get this big picture, and it's also just beautiful for people to walk into the office and see. And so we have a few companies that just have this in their kitchens, so the employees can get this sort of sense of a company TV, without having any more effort put into it other than just maintaining the Facebook and Twitter account, which they do anyway. And we have a couple of partnerships that are in the works with publishers. People who own the video obviously can do a lot more with it. In Stevie, 99.9% of the video shared on social media is YouTube, with the exception of now Facebook video. But we're doing this aggregator that when you don't own the video, when we have to use the YouTube or Facebook players, it's a little more limiting than what we can do if we actually us or our partners have rights to the video. So we have a few partnerships in the works for creating channels for publishers. I'll give you one example that I can kind of talk about. With TV stations or TV creators that have a few brands of shows. It could be a talk show, it could be a daytime soap, it could be one of those. They have a channel that shows this program maybe once a day or once a week, depending on the show. What we can create for them is a channel for that specific show. So a daytime drama can actually turn into a channel with all the behind the scenes and, outtakes and fan content and a lot of stuff. So a fan can actually have much more of the show that they love in this form of TV channel. And, we're not replacing the premium content. We just have a lot of content around it. So that's basically the idea, to work with publishers.
And I can really see that going for, I mean, all the big TV shows, the TV series. It's almost like it's nowadays. It's half is the actual TV show, but half is all the user generated content, all the fan art, all the fan stories, just all the behind the scenes. If you take like Walking Dead, for example, which is such a huge show, I mean, half of it is also they have like a talk show after the episode for the actors to talk about, both the what happened in the episode and kind of what their character felt like. People are so much more involved in what they're watching, so this seems just like a great way to actually get all of that in there, because I'm a big like Walking Dead fan, but of course I like half of it is watching the show, and then half of it is just watching all the memes and everything that people do after each show, and all the fans that get happy or angry or whatever, depending on what happens. It's so much more.
And you're right. And I think for me, if I'm not binge watching a show, if it's not something, either on Netflix where they release the whole season of House of Cards, for example, or if I'm watching, a season that already ended, if I have to wait a whole week for my episode, like I watch Girls and I watch Scandal, and both of them I have to wait a week now because I'm watching, the season as it's aired. Lena Dunham is a really good example from the creator of Girls and the actor. She does a lot of video analysis of the episodes after the episode, and she's very, very active on Twitter. So for fans of this show, it's really, really great to have this all in one place. And I have my Girls TV, even if if I'm waiting a whole week for the show. Another thing we're doing for publishers now, and this is really, really new, haven't talked about it yet, it's not out yet, is games over videos. Can't say much more about that, but it's the possibility to take any video and create a game out of it, either a trivia game or a puzzle. We're working on a few formats, and we're really excited about that. And that's a lot of work that we're doing with publishers as well, making any video a sort of interactive game video.
That's perfect for the fan culture.
Yep.
They usually do that themselves anyway, so yeah, cool. So you started just out in the car, thinking about these kind of channels, and how did you end up with this company? I mean, this is a couple of years later. You have had a couple of rounds, right, with investments?
Yeah, we had we found angel investors, and we were really lucky because we're pretty well connected here in Israel. We've been around for a while, and we've been around startups for a while, so it wasn't that hard for us to sort of get in the door for the investors. But luckily, we found a few angels that really had a passion for the space, for video, for connected TV, and they could really help us, because I think not only finding someone to agree to give you money, but to find smart money is really important.
Yeah.
So we had one round of $300K, and after a year, we got 300 more from them, and right after that, we got 1.5 million from Horizons Ventures, which is a Li Ka-shing fund based in Hong Kong, which invested a lot around video and media.
Yeah, and Spotify as well.
Yeah, exactly. Spotify, Facebook, Twitter, they were early investors in a lot of those. Also, Waze, the community GPS that sold to Google, they had a lot of successful companies, and this cross of media and social was very interesting to them. So they were awesome partners for us, and that's what we had for now.
So, I don't think all our listeners know what smart money is. So, can you explain that a little bit more, because it's a very interesting concept that I don't think a lot of new startup founders understand.
When you're starting out, all you can see is, how can I make this happen?
Mm,
And so you'll really, if you're inexperienced, you'll probably take the first money that's offered to you. I think, and sometimes you have to. I mean, I'm not gonna say no to someone who wants to make your dream come true. But if you can go to people who actually know the space that you're in, who actually will not only love the idea or love you, but can help you out, can bring other investors, can bring you connections with partners or future partners that you'd want to work with. Can help you get good staff. It doesn't really matter how they can help. There are a lot of aspects that they could help in. Just even if they're just shrewd businessmen that or women that that can help out for an entrepreneur that's not too experienced, that could really help. And I think um, usually smart money is refers to people who are in the field and can really help you in that field. And I think it's really important to try to aim for that.
exactly.
For I think for people who, for example, you can convince someone who hasn't invested in startups to invest in your startup. Sometimes, maybe you know them, maybe your family knows them, maybe they're looking for an opportunity, but that's not necessarily the best money you can get, because someone who doesn't know the high risk involved in startups and the stakes might not be the support that you need. So,
Have you had any those kind of bad experiences where it didn't work out?
in previous startups, a little bit.
Mm,
Just, I guess, disagreements on where the company is going on vision. And that's something that's really important as well to make sure. That's the one thing that you need to really, really, um, focus with your investors. Make sure you have the same vision. Make sure to give them all the information. Make sure your goals and the goals that they think the company has are aligned. And I have to say that with Stevie, I'm having a really great experience with my investors in that sense. We're very aligned on the goals and the vision of the company.
yeah, I think a lot of new startups, they kind of see this Shark Tank and those kind of shows, and they think that investors are like a person sitting in the chair that you pitch to, and then decide in like 30 seconds if they like your company or not, and then they just invest. But in reality, actually, it's a often a relationship that you develop over a long time.
Right. No one's going to invest in you the first time you meet them. I mean,
No.
really rare, unless someone, they know brings you in the door, and then they're not investing in you, but they're investing in the someone that brought you, um, which is not always a good idea. And you're totally right. It is a relationship, and it's a long-term relationship. I mean, these are people, if they invest in you, you're going to be married to them until success or failure of the company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Often people talk about the founder, the founder relationship, that's like a marriage, but they don't understand that they're also bringing in,
Yeah.
the rest of the family who pretty much stays with you like the rest the rest of the time.
Yeah.
So it's like having a lot of in-laws as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And I agree. I think also a lot of startups, they kind of underuse the possibility of having an advisory board and the board itself. Um, how have you worked with that part?
I use a lot of mentors, actually.
Mm,
Um, my board is I still have my angels on my board, so we're enough people on the board, but I do talk to them a lot, and individually and we meet probably once every 2 months, and then I do talk to them during these 2 months as well for just advice or updates. I like to keep them very closely updated. But I think mentorships, and there are some mentorship programs in different accelerators or outside of accelerators, but also just finding the people, a big part of networking is finding the people that can help you out. And a lot of them can just be your mentors. And I know that here in the startup ecosystem, it's very popular just to help out someone. I mean, I can see on other people's startups sometimes things that I can't see on mine. So even
Yeah.
with my experience, and obviously people with more entrepreneurship experience can really help out, and it doesn't have to cost you, money or stock. It could be just, the right person at the right time that can sort of steer you in the right direction. And I have my list of, I think it's 7 people, more experienced entrepreneurs than me, that when I have like really big decisions and things that I need help with, that I call. And developing those relationships are really, really, really important. Advisory boards, usually you'll take an advisory to someone that can really help you, but can also, it's important to take someone, if you do give stock to someone, it could be someone that can help the company out in terms of outside perception of the company.
Mm.
So it needs to be really someone from the field that has a really good name, and there's a really good reason to give them stock and to have them in your, list of advisory. But it's not only for show, because it's someone that's supposed to really help you, but it's also someone whose name will open doors. So not everyone that can help you because their experience is actually someone to put on the advisory board. That's my experience.
Yeah. There's for example, here in Sweden, some usually an advisory board here in Sweden is less attached to the company than the actual board is. So they don't have any equity or something like that. They're just paid to be kind of like a group of consultants,
Oh,
which don't have to be like involved as a board. You don't have to take decisions to actually remove them if you need to.
yeah.
But you are saying that in Israel it's different.
It's different in the sense that I found that there's a lot of possibility for mentors and
Mm.
not actually paid advisors.
Mm.
I think also startups sometimes make the mistake, for example, for paying a marketing advisor, for example,
Mm.
and I think that most startups that grew, consumer facing startups that grew, um, did not do it because of someone who actually knew a lot about marketing, but because there was some opening in the market, some angle that the founders saw to and how to bring this stuff. And Facebook is a good example, Twitter is a good example. It wasn't because the founders were necessarily experienced with marketing. Um, so there are a lot of professionals that can join your team, but advisors, um, I think as a startup, I'd be very sort of careful to spend money on something that maybe I actually should figure out by myself.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, an advisory board should give you kind of like the outside view, as you said, on your company, and kind of give you the insight from industries that maybe you don't have the team internally to actually watch. So more like ambassadors and
Yeah,
yeah, news channels.
yeah, and connections. I think that's probably the most valuable thing.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting that a lot of people are very careful about what kind of employees you have and what kind of like business partners you have. But then when it comes to investors, they're like, yeah, you have money. That's great. And it's like, yeah, but the money is not, that's actually just a part of it. If that person can bring you actual client, you don't need that much money. So that's actually better. But yeah, it seems like it hasn't really caught on yet. I'm hoping
You can't
it will.
blame an entrepreneur for really wanting to. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
for really wanting the his vision to come true, and money is a big barrier.
Yeah. And I think also like the first money is maybe more important when it comes to like the next round. Then you want to be like that is really is something very very long term, because you can't kind of like move that out of the company if you have like an A round or B round, etc.
I don't know. I think yeah, maybe. I guess relationships are really important. It's people, not money, that you're getting.
Yeah.
Basically. So I think it's probably important in every step. And not all of us can be, like Mark Zuckerberg has this. I mean, he's an amazing example of being able to keep, voting rights on the board. Most entrepreneurs, lose the the majority of the votes. And I think what I've learned from boards is you don't even want to get to a show of hands. You want to get to an agreement with the people that you're working with. It's not about voting. It's not about how many against how many. So the people are really important to know that you get along with.
Yeah, and that's also I think when you're a bit more experienced, you know that you have to actually set a culture in your board as well as in your company, and that really makes a difference.
That's true.
Yeah, it's a very interesting field, but I think a lot of startups, they don't really think about it until they're there, until they're like in the door. And I think that's where a lot of mistakes happen, because they don't actually strategize that much about it.
Yeah, I think for any entrepreneur who's either technical or product it's really even though it's hard to figure out the product sometimes, our comfort zone is usually the product.
Yeah.
Because usually we're creative people. We want to build things. We don't like the contracts. We don't like I mean, we learn how to deal with them, but usually an entrepreneur's comfort zone would be the creation process. And the business processes are really important, and it's really important to grow into that place without losing the creative time and the actual building part. So, and it's not easy. It's not an easy combination.
Yeah, we have a lot of clients in one of my companies that would come into that. They come into our company in that stage where they were going for like the more professional part of the business processes, and you can see kind of like the they're a little bit frightened in the beginning, like, wow, this is now we're gonna be serious, and do I have to wear like a suit now? But if you give
Yeah, go ahead.
but if you're giving the right tools and you have kind of more experienced entrepreneurs, then you'll be fine. But if you miss that, then you're gonna have so much extra work that is not really worth the time.
Yeah. I think it's also realizing that it is part of the business, that it's not separate.
Yeah.
That it's not like you're going to build something and it's just going to catch on without anything and any business decisions, any business relationships, that's not going to happen, because you'll either need money, or you'll need marketing, or you'll need business development, or partners, or whatever. So just realizing that that's what you're getting into.
Yeah.
Getting into a business. You're not, getting into a playground. So in terms of a creation playground, there will be a creation playground, but it's going to be part of the business.
Yeah, it's not everything.
Yeah.
So, as you have such a long experience from the Israel startup world, what do you think have changed during your years there?
It's an interesting question. What has changed? First of all, in the beginning, everybody knew everyone. Now it's like hundreds and thousands of people that are involved in the startup economy here. So it's really big. A lot of, I think, schools and accelerators were not involved as much as they are now.
Mm.
It really used to be this kind of I think maybe everywhere, you know, in the 90s and the beginning of the 2000s, it was more people who, um, you know, programmed since they were young and really were into the space and just sort of created stuff together and it turned into a startup sometimes. I think now people sort of finish school and are like, okay, we want to create the startup, or drop out of school and, you know, want to go for a startup. They know what it means. I think we didn't really have the formula, you know, before.
Yeah.
And nobody really has a formula for success, but you have the sort of formula for
Scaling.
there's this no, but also this image, you know, what a startup should look like. How does it start? What should your story should look like? And
Mm.
you know, and I'm a woman entrepreneur. Obviously, there are less of us around, and I actually um, got pregnant just as we got our angel money.
Mm.
So I'm not a typical story here.
Mm.
And for me, it was just releasing that idea of what a startup should be. If it's, you know, three guys in hoodies and who all are programmers and stuff. And I'm not a programmer. I studied fine arts and I was an artist for a while. And then I sort of got into the internet and did different things. Um, so it's actually, I think what changed is that it's become a little more formal, everything. But again, you have your own story within it, and the way you sort of take it and take your idea and take your company um, can create a really interesting alternative story as well.
Do you see any difference in maturity when it comes to like the startup founders, the business angels, the investors, a change in attitude or something like that?
Um, there are a lot more angels actually. So there are a lot more options to get funded, at least for your first round. So that's really good, and even more VCs. I guess there were like big five here, and that's it before,
Mm.
and now there are more options. Um, that's probably. I mean, a lot of people that I sort of grew up in the startup ecosystem here with are now really serious, you know, CEOs of really serious companies or have been sold to really serious companies. So it used to be much more sort of fun and games and um, you know, playing video games and having these geeky evenings with beer and music and video games and stuff. And now it's more like we meet at networking events and conferences. That's for us maybe the change. But but it's interesting. What hasn't changed is that people are really, really good with helping each other out. Like the mentoring that I talked about before.
Mm.
That's something that sort of was kept here in the culture. That you give your time to other people because you know your time. They're going to give you time as well when you need it.
Mm.
So that's really cool. Um, and also, what hasn't changed is that it's very apolitical. No one talks about politics in the startup ecosystem. I mean,
Mm.
which is very weird. I know it happens. I don't know what it's like in Europe, but it's like this in the U.S. as well.
Mm.
Um,
It's kind of a detached bubble in some
yeah, I
ways.
don't know if people are kind of not into it too much and not. Gil and I are actually pretty active politically, so we're a little different. And there are a few people who are different, but usually it's considered sort of impolite to talk about politics in
Yeah.
the startups here.
And I'm wondering also that if part of it is also that the industry itself is so immersive, you kind of dive in, and there is so much news, and there's so much to consume to be up to date in the industry. So it's like there's almost no space left in your brain for the rest of the world. It
That's right.
feels kind of like that sometimes when you meet startup entrepreneurs, that they kind of feel stressed out about that part.
Yeah. I think that's right. I think it's it definitely lets you sink into this bubble and not, you know, have considerations of the outside of it, if you don't want to, or if you sort of dive in and you're right, it's very immersive. So if you don't feel, I mean, for me, Israel is at a point and at a place where um, it's unethical for me to ignore
Mm.
what's happening outside the very privileged startup bubble.
Hmm.
Um, but I guess if I wanted to escape, I could to the startup world. It's very immersive, as you said.
I was reading a really interesting Quora post, Quora.com,
Yeah.
and it was a huge thread because there was someone just writing. So okay, we have this startup world, and pretty much every product, like 90%, 99% of the products are aimed towards urban, hipster, well-paid 30-something men. So what's coming next? What's outside of this bubble? Because I can't see it. Please help me out. And the following kind of conversations after that was so interesting. And they just talked about everything that's not a cool app or gadget, but actually something that impacts like health, war, sanitarian issues, like all of those kind of startups around like the
Yeah.
for the rest of the world. And they talked a lot about like, for kids, for old people, like there's so many areas which are almost virtually untouched by the startup world, and there's so much potential and so much to do there.
Well, I don't know if they're completely untouched. I mean, health is a big area in startup.
Yeah.
It's just that it's different in terms of um, how long you have to develop the product and how long it takes to get returns in health.
Mm.
It's much longer than developing an app for whatever. Um, and also, like, our VC, Horizons Ventures, they're now investing a lot in sustainability and ecological startups,
Mm.
and they know that's a longer term investment than what they did in entertainment and video and stuff like that. Um, but it's very important to them now. I think there's a lot of hype, and this is, we can blame the whole tech area reporting on that. It's very easy to report about, you know, a few cool kids that came into San Francisco and did this app, than about, these 50 people working on something that has to do with cure of cancer, or to help people sleep or whatever,
Mm.
in some other city in the states that got money and are working on it and developing a product. It's I think, apropos of your question, what changed? I think that's changed. I think real technology, and I'm not saying Stevie is completely entertainment, and I'm not even judging or anything. I'm just saying that it used to be like more hardcore technology stuff that came out of here.
Mm.
And now I guess it's a lot more like content and things that are not like a technologically heavy invention
Mm.
necessarily. Um, but yeah, it really depends where you come from. I mean, I know a lot of health startups that actually were started by doctors because they know what the need is, and then they go around and find the people that can help them realize it. So
Mm. I think also one part of it can be this kind of bubble, the bubble part that, and it's the cool kids kind of area is it's harder for, older kind of scientists, etc., to get in there. I've seen it like so much in Stockholm that, they're kind of like, well, they have a super degree and like have researched something for 15 years, but they're still kind of uncomfortable being there because this kind of coolness factor is so like such a big part of the networking scene. And but I'm kind of encouraged because we're seeing more and more doctors and those kind of entrepreneurs coming here in Stockholm. So and actually, you know, setting down their business and getting involved and getting venture capital. So I think it's starting to shift. But when I first saw that Quora, it was like, it was sad to read it that it was, you know, hadn't come further. But I'm hoping that will change more and more.
Yeah, and I think investors, I mean, a lot of them to some degree go after the hype, but you know, they're all about risk and diversity, so they know that they need to invest not only in some cool kids that this is their first startup, but also in some, you know, heavy technology and science ventures. So I hope that gets balanced out, even though it doesn't look that way if you read the tech press. You know.
Exactly. Well, so nice to talk to you. And just a great conversation. And I'm really curious about I looked through Stevie and used it for different kind of channels, but now I'm really into like seeing what I can find for The Walking Dead.
Okay, we have the Walking Dead channel, so it should be really easy to find.
I guess so.
Okay.
Okay, great to talk to you, Yeal.
Great to talk to you. Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
You've been listening to Xue Mei Rodin talk with Yael Givon from Stevie. You can try Stevie out for yourself at Steveie, that's STEVIE.com. The subject of mentors was touched on a few times in this episode, and if that's an area of your professional and personal life that you'd like to develop, we've got a special resource for you. It's a special audio and PDF download called How to Get a Mentor. It's a topic that we've had a lot of questions about, and one that Xue Mei has had a lot of experience with. From one-on-one mentorships to premium mastermind groups, we'll explore all those options that you have and what you should do to get the mentor that's going to take you to the next level in your career. So you can go download yours at startupkevin.com/resources. Until next time, we wish you great success.